Some stories find us when we least expect them. This one found me on a quiet September afternoon, in a small town in Vermont where the maple leaves were just beginning to turn gold. It's a story about two German shepherds who refused to leave each other's side, even when the world had given up on them. It's about a 70-year-old woman who thought her best days were behind her. And it's about the simple truth that love, real love, doesn't care how old you are or how broken you've become. If you've ever felt like someone else was making all your decisions for you, if you've ever wondered whether you still matter, if you've ever looked into the eyes of an animal and seen your own loneliness reflected back then, this story is for you. Pull up a chair, get yourself a cup of coffee. Let me tell you what happened. Patricia Morrison knelt on the bare wooden floor. Her knees screamed the cartilage had been bad for years, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd gotten down this low. Her hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around two furry heads, pulling them close to her chest. The young woman from Animal Control stood in the doorway. Metal leashes dangled from her grip, clinking against each other like loose change. "Ma'am, the landlord filed a complaint. No pets allowed in this building. You have to surrender them." Patricia looked down. Storm, the smaller one, brown-black coat, ribs she could still count even after 3 weeks of regular meals, licked her hand. The same hand that bore a faint pink scar from their first day together, when the dog had been too terrified to tell friend from enemy. Shadow, the larger one. The protector pressed her head into Patricia's lap, just like she always pressed against her sister during those long nights when Storm would wake whimpering at 2 in the morning. The September light slanted through the window, catching the red leather collars around their necks. Wedding collars. Patricia could still read the engraving if she squinted. Tommy and Jane. June 15th, 2022. Forever begins today. Forever. What a word. Somewhere down the street, she could hear a radio playing through an open window. Oldies station. Patsy Cline singing about falling to pieces. 70 years old. 40 years in the house she'd just sold. A daughter who thought she'd lost the ability to make her own choices. And now they wanted to take the only thing she'd chosen for herself. Please. Her voice cracked on the word. Please. They've already been abandoned once. They finally trust someone. If you take them now... Ma'am, I'm just doing my job. Shadow lifted her head, her ears flattened. Not aggressive, Patricia had learned to read her by now, but scared. The kind of scared that came from remembering. From knowing what it felt like to be dragged away from the only safety you'd ever known. Storm began to whimper, high-pitched, desperate. She pressed harder against her sister, as if trying to disappear into Shadow's fur. Patricia had heard that sound before, every night between 2 and 3 in the morning, when Storm would jerk awake from whatever nightmare haunted her, frantically searching the darkness to make sure Shadow was still there. Someone separated them before. The vet had said. That's why she panics. They're not just dogs. Patricia wasn't sure who she was talking to anymore. The woman in the doorway. The empty room. Or maybe just herself. They're sisters. They're all each other has. The animal control officer shifted her weight. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across her face. Doubt, maybe. Or recognition. Then it was gone. Ma'am, I need you to step away from the animals. Patricia's grip tightened. Shadow pressed closer. Storm's whimpering grew louder. And Patricia Morrison, retired schoolteacher, widow of 8 years, mother of 1 daughter who thought she'd lost her mind, made a decision. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. Steadier. Ma'am? I said, no. Patricia looked up, met the younger woman's eyes. You want to take them. You're going to have to go through me first. Silence. The animal control officer stared at her. A 70-year-old woman in worn-out New Balance sneakers and a cardigan with a button missing, kneeling on a bare floor, arms wrapped around two trembling German shepherds. It should have looked ridiculous. It didn't. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "if you obstruct me, I can have you charged with—" "Then charge me." More silence. Shadow's ears lifted slightly. Storm stopped whimpering. Both dogs looked at Patricia as if seeing her for the first time. 3 weeks, Patricia thought. I've only known them for 3 weeks, and I'm about to get arrested for them. Harold would have laughed. Her late husband had always said she'd bring home the whole shelter if she could. Well, Harold, she thought, looks like you were right. The officer's radio crackled. A voice said something Patricia couldn't make out. I'm calling for backup. The officer said, Last chance, ma'am. Step away. Patricia didn't move, and somewhere in the distance, she heard another car pulling up. More doors opening. More footsteps on the gravel driveway. This was really happening. 3 weeks earlier. If this story touched something in your heart, I'd love to know where you're reading from today. There's an old saying, a story shared is a blessing doubled. Drop a comment below, you might just find a kindred spirit nearby. The house smelled like pine and old dust. Patricia stood in the middle of what used to be her living room. Empty now. 40 years of furniture, photographs, Christmas mornings all packed into boxes sitting in a moving truck outside. She ran her fingers along the wall, found the faint square where the wedding portrait had hung since 1984, slightly darker than the paint around it. Harold's face had looked out from that spot every single day for 4 decades. Gone now, wrapped in bubble wrap, labeled in Karen's neat handwriting. Mom's photos, fragile. The September sun came through bare windows. No curtains anymore. Karen had packed those yesterday. Patricia's left knee ached. Her lower back had that familiar twinge always worse when the weather changed. She walked into the kitchen anyway. The burn mark was still there, right side of the counter, near the stove. Harold had tried to make her a birthday cake the year she turned 50, set the oven mitt on fire. They'd laughed until she cried, standing in this very spot with the smoke detector screaming overhead. She touched the mark, rough under her fingernails. The new owners would sand it down, put in granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. They wouldn't know. Her phone buzzed. Karen? 4th time today. Mom, the apartment is ready. Movers will bring your things tomorrow morning. Call me when you get to Burlington. Patricia slid the phone back into her cardigan pocket without answering. Down the hallway, past the bathroom where Harold used to sing off-key in the shower. Past the linen closet that still smelled faintly of the lavender sachets she'd kept there for 30 years. Karen's old bedroom. The pencil marks were still there on the doorframe. Faded but visible. Karen, 3 years old. Karen, 4 years old. All the way up to 18. Patricia traced them with her finger. The wood smooth from decades of hands doing exactly this. Outside. The moving truck rumbled. Diesel engine. Impatient. One more room. The back porch. The screen door creaked same creak for 20 years. Harold always said he'd fix it. September air hit her face. Cool. Damp earth. Turning leaves. And then she heard it. Low. Weak. Coming from the overgrown bushes at the far end of the yard where Harold had always meant to build a tool shed. A whimper. Patricia walked toward the sound. Slow. Careful. Her left knee protested with each step. The cartilage had been bad for years. The bushes at the back of the yard had grown wild. Harold always meant to clear them out, build that tool shed he'd sketched on a napkin one Sunday afternoon, one of those projects that never happened. The whimper came again, softer this time. She pushed aside a branch. Thorns caught her cardigan sleeve. 2 dogs, German shepherds, huddled together in the dirt beneath the overgrown brush. The larger one, black and gray coat, matted with mud, lay curled around the smaller one, protective, deliberate. Her eyes locked onto Patricia the moment she appeared. Not growling, not baring teeth, just watching. Every muscle tense beneath that dirty fur. The smaller dog didn't move at all. Brown-black coat, ribs visible even from here, rising and falling with shallow breaths. Eyes squeezed shut, trembling. Patricia's breath caught in her throat. She'd seen neglected animals before. Taught school for 35 years in a rural district, kids sometimes came in talking about strays, about dogs their parents couldn't afford to feed anymore. But this was different. These dogs weren't just hungry. They were broken. She crouched down. Her knees cracked loud enough to startle a bird from a nearby branch. She ignored the pain. Easy now. The voice she used for crying children. The voice she'd used for Harold on sleepless nights when his back seized up. I ain't gonna hurt you. Just an old lady who has nowhere to go either. The larger dog's ears flattened, still watching, still coiled tight as a spring. Patricia didn't move closer. She just sat. Right there in the dirt, damp seeping through her good slacks. That's when she noticed the collars, red leather, both of them, matching. She squinted, adjusted her glasses. The afternoon light was fading, but she could make out engraved letters on the larger dog's collar. Shadow and Storm, Tommy and Jane, June 15th, 2022. And below that, smaller forever begins. Today. Wedding dogs. She'd seen this once before, at her friend Martha's granddaughter's wedding 3 summers ago. The young couple had gotten matching puppies as a gift to each other. Posted photos all over that Facebook thing Karen was always trying to get her to use. June 2022. Not even 2.5 years ago. Forever. Patricia murmured. Didn't last long, did it? The larger dog's shadow, she guessed, shifted slightly, still blocking the smaller one from view. Patricia pushed herself up, knees cracking. She walked back to the house, through the empty kitchen, to the refrigerator Karen had cleaned out yesterday. Half a package of sliced ham sat on the shelf, Karen's lunch for the final packing day. A bottle of water on the counter. She took both. Back at the bushes, she set the ham down 2 yards from where the dogs lay, placed the water bottle beside it, cap removed, some poured into the plastic lid. Then she retreated to the back porch steps and waited. The moving truck rumbled out front. One of the workers called her name. She didn't answer. 10 minutes passed. 15. 20. Shadow emerged first, low to the ground, ears rotating, nose working the air. The dog reached the ham, sniffed it, then did something that made Patricia press her hand flat against her chest. Shadow picked up a slice in her mouth, turned around, carried it back into the bushes. Patricia heard the smaller dog eating. Soft, desperate sounds. The sound of something starving finally given permission to survive. Only after Storm had finished did Shadow return. She ate what remained. Quick, efficient. Then lapped at the water, glancing up at Patricia between each drink. You've been taking care of her, Patricia said quietly. All this time, haven't you, Curl? Shadow's ears lifted.
Just for a second.
The sun dropped below the tree line, orange light fading to purple. Crickets started up somewhere in the neighbor's yard. Patricia's phone buzzed again. Karen, she answered this time. Mom, it's 9 o'clock. Why are you still at the house? There are 2 dogs in the backyard. Abandoned. Starving. Silence on the line. Then that sigh, the one Patricia had heard 1,000 times over the years. The sigh that meant Karen thought she was being difficult. Call animal control. They'll handle it. They're wearing wedding collars. Karen, someone threw them away like old furniture. Mom, you're moving into an apartment tomorrow. You can't. I know what I can and can't do. Karen, been knowing for 70 years. She hung up. Her thumb trembled slightly as she lowered the phone. That was the first time in years she'd ended a call with her daughter mid-sentence. Darkness settled in. Cool air. The smell of wood smoke from somewhere down the road. Patricia went inside. Found the old picnic blanket in the trunk of her car, the red plaid one Harold always loved. Still smelled faintly of grass and summer. She spread it on the back porch. Set out more water. Left the screen door propped open. Then she lay down on the bare living room floor. No furniture. No bed. Just her coat bunched under her head and the hard wood pressing against her spine. She didn't sleep much, kept listening for sounds from the porch. Gray morning light woke her. Early. Her back had locked up overnight. Took 3 tries to sit upright. She looked toward the back door. 2 dogs lay on the red plaid blanket, shadow positioned between Storm and the entrance. Always between Storm and anything else. But Storm's eyes were open, looking directly at Patricia. Not afraid, not aggressive, just looking. And her tail moved. Once, a tiny wag. Patricia knew then that she couldn't call animal control. Knew it the way she knew her own name. What she didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that keeping these 2 dogs would cost her nearly everything she had left. The moving truck arrived at 8 in the morning. Patricia stood in the middle of the front yard. Shadow and Storm stayed behind her 5 feet back, still wary, but no longer hiding in the bushes. 2 young men climbed out of the truck cab. The taller one stopped mid-step when he saw the dogs. Ma'am, those yours? They are now. The men exchanged glances. The shorter one shrugged. They started loading the last boxes. Patricia opened the back of the moving truck to check her belongings. The doors swung wide, revealing the dark interior. Behind her, she heard claws scraping on gravel. She turned. Shadow had backed up 10 feet, ears flat, body low, eyes fixed on that dark opening. Storm pressed against her sister, whimpering. Someone had locked them in a dark place before. Patricia didn't need anyone to tell her that. The terror in Shadow's eyes said everything. Easy, girl. Patricia walked toward her car instead. The old Honda Civic sat in the driveway, morning dew still on the windshield. She opened the back door, retrieved the red plaid blanket from where she'd folded it that morning, spread it across the back seat. How about this one? Storm moved first. Tentative steps across the gravel. She sniffed the blanket, the same blanket they'd slept on last night, and jumped in. Shadow stayed frozen, looking at her sister in the car, looking at Patricia. I ain't gonna separate you 2, Patricia said. Never. I swear on Harold's grave. Shadow's ears lifted, just slightly. Then she jumped. The 2 dogs curled together on the back seat, tails still tucked, but breathing slower now. Patricia closed the door gently. 3 hours to Burlington. She drove with the windows cracked, cool September air, the smell of hay fields and wood smoke from somewhere distant. Shadow kept her head up the whole way, watching the road. Storm slept with her muzzle on Shadow's paw. The Riverside Senior Living Complex appeared around noon. 3-story building, beige siding, wheelchair ramp at the entrance. A sign by the door listed amenities 24-hour nursing staff. Emergency call buttons in every unit. Weekly wellness checks. Karen's silver Subaru sat in the visitor lot. Patricia pulled in beside it. Cut the engine. Karen emerged from the building's front entrance before Patricia could open her door. Walking fast. Face already tight. Then she saw the back seat. Her skin went white. "Mom, what did you do?" "Brought them home." "This isn't." Karen's voice pitched higher. "Mom, this building doesn't allow dogs. I checked. Specifically. Because I know how you are. How I am. You pick up strays. Dad used to say you'd bring home the whole shelter if you could. But this is different. This is your health. Your safety. I can't. Don't." Patricia held up her hand. "Don't bring your father into this." Silence. A car passed on the street behind them. Karen's jaw worked. That look she got when she was trying to stay professional. The hospital administrator look. "I took 2 weeks off work." Her voice dropped. Controlled now. The tone she probably used with difficult patients' families. "Found this apartment. Did the paperwork. Arranged everything. So you wouldn't have to worry. And you show up with 2 strays that probably have fleas, ticks, who knows what. Their names are Shadow and Storm. Mom, they were wedding presents. Couple divorced. Neither wanted them. Threw them out like..." Patricia stopped. She didn't say like you're trying to put me in storage. But the words hung there anyway. Karen's eyes reddened. "That's not fair. I'm not throwing you away. I'm trying to keep you safe. I know you think you are. Honey. What's that supposed to mean? Means I'm 70, not dead. Means I still get to make my own mistakes." Karen opened her mouth, closed it, turned and walked back toward the building. Patricia didn't follow. She got back in the car, drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks away, parked in the shade with the windows down for the dogs. Inside, she ordered a decaf and sat at a corner table with her old laptop. Houses for rent. Small, yard, pet-friendly, Vermont. The screen glowed. Results loaded slowly. The laptop was 8 years old, bought the year Harold died. Most of the money from selling the house sat in a joint account. Karen had insisted. For emergencies. Easier to manage. But Patricia still had her teacher's pension. $2,100 a month. Not much. But hers. She thought about Eleanor Hutchins. Ellie. They'd been in the same book club for 15 years before Ellie moved to Waterbury after her husband passed. Patricia pulled out her phone. "Ellie, it's Pat. Pat Morrison." "Pat." The familiar voice, warm and surprised. "Lord, it's been ages. You doing okay? I need a place to rent. Small. Got 2 dogs now. Long story." A pause. Then Ellie laughed. "Well, honey, the house right next to George Brennan just came up. Owner moved to Florida last month. You want me to ask around?" 4 days later, Patricia stood in front of a small house on Maple Lane in Waterbury. 1 bedroom, peeling paint, kitchen appliances from the 1970s. But there was a fenced backyard, a front porch with 2 plastic chairs. And George Brennan, 78, widower, 3 cats stood on his own porch next door, watching. "German shepherds, huh?" He scratched his chin. "Dogs allowed." Owner said yes. "Good." He nodded slowly. "More the merrier, I always say." Patricia signed the lease that afternoon. Then she called Karen. "I'm not moving into the apartment. Found a house, small one. Has a yard. Long silence. Mom, do you even understand what you're doing? Yeah. Karen, first time in a long while. I understand exactly what I'm doing. She hung up. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. But 2 weeks later, when the envelope arrived from the Burlington apartment complex, a bill for $2,000 early termination fee. With Patricia's signature on a contract she'd never signed, she realized that understanding what she was doing and understanding what it would cost her were two very different things. The house in Waterbury leaked. Patricia discovered this on her third night, when water dripped onto her forehead at 2 in the morning. She'd positioned the bed, a second-hand mattress, on a metal frame directly under a soft spot in the ceiling. She moved the bed, put a bucket under the drip, lay back down. From the corner of the room, Shadow lifted her head, watching, always watching. Storm slept curled against her sister's side, twitching occasionally, dreaming of something Patricia couldn't see. The furnace kicked on with a groan that rattled the windows. The pipes in the walls knocked and hissed. Outside, wind pushed through the bare branches of the maple tree in the front yard. None of it was what she'd had before. Patricia closed her eyes and listened to the bucket filling, one drop at a time. The first 2 weeks passed in small victories. Day 3, Storm let Patricia stroke her head. The dog leaned into the touch, eyes half closed, tail giving a tentative wag. Shadow watched from across the room, not approaching, not retreating either. Day 5. Patricia dropped a book. It slipped from her hands while she was reading on the porch, hit the wooden floor with a sharp crack. Shadow threw herself flat, ears pinned, belly pressed to the boards. Her whole body trembled. Patricia didn't move, didn't reach for her, just sat there, breathing slowly. Easy, girl. Just a book. Nothing's gonna hurt you here. Shadow stayed down for 3 full minutes. Then, slowly, she lifted her head, looked at Patricia, at the book on the floor, back at Patricia. No hitting, no yelling. The dog's ears came up slightly. She didn't relax, not fully, but something shifted in her eyes. Day 7. Patricia started reading aloud every evening. Pride and Prejudice, the copy she and Harold had shared for 30 years, taking turns with chapters. Her voice filled the small living room, steady and unhurried. Shadow would lie near the door at first. By day 10, she'd moved to the middle of the room. By day 12, she was beside Patricia's chair, still out of reach. But there. It is a truth universally acknowledged. Patricia read one night. Let a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Shadow's ear twitched. Storm, sprawled on the rug, let out a soft snore. Patricia smiled. Don't worry. It gets better. Day 14. Shadow sniffed Patricia's hand. Patricia was sitting on the porch steps, morning coffee cooling beside her. Shadow approached from the yard, stopped 2 feet away, extended her nose, cool breath on Patricia's knuckles, whiskers brushing skin. Then Shadow turned and walked to the far end of the porch. But that night, she lay within arm's reach of Patricia's chair. Progress. Storm's problem wasn't touch. It was darkness. Every night between 2 and 3 in the morning, the smaller dog would jerk awake, whimpering, panting, scrambling across the floor in the dark. The first time it happened, Patricia thought something was wrong. She turned on the light, found Storm pressed against Shadow's side, eyes wild, always checking that her sister was still there. Someone separated them before. Patricia told Dr. Miller at the vet clinic. Young woman, red hair pulled back, just a few years out of school. That's why she panics. Dr. Miller ran a scanner over Shadow's shoulder. The chip reader beeped. Both registered to Thomas Reed initially, then transferred to Jane Reed Cooper. She frowned at her computer screen. Last update was 8 months ago. Ownership status says surrendered. Surrendered where? That's the thing, Mrs. Morrison. Not to any shelter. Just surrendered. The status was updated, but there's no receiving organization listed. Dr. Miller looked up. Someone washed their hands of them legally. Then, just let them go. Patricia drove home with both dogs in the back seat. Storm slept. Shadow watched the road. That evening, after the dogs were fed and settled, Patricia sat at her kitchen table with her old laptop. She typed the names from the chip registration into a search engine. Thomas Reed, Jane Reed Cooper. Not much came up. A wedding announcement from June 2022 in a small Vermont newspaper. A photo of a young couple late 20s, smiling with 2 German Shepherd puppies wearing matching bow ties. Tommy and Jane Reed celebrate their wedding day with their fur babies, Shadow and Storm. Patricia scrolled down. A divorce filing from 14 months later. Public record. No details beyond the date. She closed the laptop. 2 people had stood in front of their families and promised forever, given each other dogs as symbols of that promise. Then, less than 2 years later, neither one wanted the symbols anymore. Too painful. Too much reminder of what they'd lost. Easier to let them go. Patricia looked across the room. Shadow lay in her usual spot near the door. Storm was curled at her feet. They loved you once, Patricia said quietly. I'm sure they did. When their love for each other died. You reminded them of what they'd lost. So they threw you away. Shadow lifted her head. Patricia held her hand out. Low. Palm up. Shadow stood, walked over, and for the first time, pressed her head into Patricia's palm. The fur was coarse from months of living rough. Patricia could feel the shape of her skull underneath, the warmth of her. I won't do that, Patricia said. Got nobody left to stop loving. Karen called every day. Brief conversations, careful words. How are the dogs? Fine. Shadow let me brush her yesterday. That's good. Silence would stretch between them. Patricia could hear office sounds in the background, phones ringing. Voices. The hospital's constant hum. You eating okay? Mom? Eating fine. The house warm enough? Warm enough. More silence. Okay. Talk tomorrow. Karen didn't visit. Patricia didn't invite her. George Brennan came by most Sunday mornings with banana bread, his wife's recipe. He said, she died 4 years ago. German Shepherds are good dogs. He sat on Patricia's porch, watching Shadow patrol the perimeter of the yard. My son Jimmy had one when he was a boy, loyal to a fault. These 2 won't leave each other's side. Smart. They know what matters. Eleanor Hutchins stopped over for tea twice a week. 72 years old, retired nurse. 40 years of experience reading bodies and behaviors. See how Shadow positions herself. Ellie pointed with her teacup. Shadow lay near the porch steps, angled so she could see both the yard and the front door. Always between Storm and any entrance. Pack instinct. Sure. But that's trauma response too. She's been the one keeping them alive. And Storm remembers how to love. Shadow forgot. Storm's teaching her again. Patricia watched the two dogs. Storm had her head on Shadow's back leg, dozing in the afternoon sun. Shadow's eyes were half closed, but her ears moved constantly, tracking sounds, monitoring threats, always vigilant. Even now. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Burlington address, official looking. Patricia opened it at the kitchen table while her coffee went cold. A bill, $2,000. Early termination fee for the apartment Karen had reserved. And at the bottom, a signature. Patricia Morrison. Except Patricia had never signed anything. She stared at the looping handwriting, close to hers. Not quite right, the M was different. The T crossed too high, but close enough that someone who didn't know better wouldn't notice. Karen's handwriting, trying to look like Patricia's. Her daughter had forged her signature. Patricia sat very still. The coffee steamed, then stopped steaming. Outside. Shadow barked once at a passing car. She picked up her phone, dialed. Mom, everything okay? Did you sign my name on that apartment lease? Silence. Mom, you weren't thinking clearly at the time. I was trying to. Karen, did you sign my name? Longer silence. Yes. You forged my signature. It wasn't. I didn't think you'd. I'm 70 years old. Not senile. Not incompetent. Patricia's voice stayed level. The teacher voice. The one that had stopped playground fights and silenced rowdy classrooms. You had no right. Mom. She ended the call. Her hands weren't shaking. She noticed that with something like surprise. She'd expected them to shake. Footsteps on the floor. Shadow appeared beside her chair. The dog looked up at Patricia, then slowly, deliberately licked her hand. One lick, gentle. Then she lay down at Patricia's feet. You understand, don't you, girl? Patricia whispered. You know what it's like when someone decides things for you. Shadow's tail moved, just once. Patricia sat there until the light changed. The coffee went completely cold, and the shadows in the kitchen stretched long across the floor. She was still sitting there when the headlights swept across the front window. A car she didn't recognize. Silver SUV. Pulling into her driveway. Shadow's head came up. Low growl building in her chest. Storm scrambled awake, ears pinned, pressing against her sister. The car door opened. A woman stepped out. Young, early 30s. Brown hair pulled back. She stood in the driveway, staring at the porch, at the two dogs. Her face went pale. Shadow. Her voice cracked. Storm. And Patricia realized, with a cold drop in her stomach, that the past these dogs had run from had just found them again. The woman stood in the driveway, frozen, staring at the porch. Oh my God. Her voice came out thin, stretched. It's really you. Shadow's growl deepened. The fur along her spine stood straight up. She positioned herself at the top of the porch steps between Patricia and the stranger. Except this woman wasn't a stranger to them. Storm had already bolted inside. Patricia could hear her whimpering somewhere behind the sofa. The same sound she made during her 2 a.m. nightmares. Patricia rose from her chair. Slowly, her knees protested. Can I help you? I'm Jane. The woman took a step forward. Shadow's growl sharpened. She stopped. Jane Cooper. Those are my dogs. The name from the chip registration. The name from the wedding announcement Patricia had found online. The smiling bride with the matching German Shepherd puppies. Patricia stayed on the porch, Didn't come down the steps. They were your dogs. You surrendered them 8 months ago. Jane's face tightened. I didn't. It's complicated. The divorce was a mess. Tommy was supposed to what? Jane looked down, her hands twisted together in front of her body. Find them a home. I believed him. I didn't know he just... She trailed off. Didn't know he just let them go? No. But you didn't check. Patricia kept her voice level, the same tone she'd used with parents who made excuses for why their children hadn't done homework. 8 months. You didn't once think to find out. I was dealing with a lot. You don't understand. I understand they were starving when I found them. Jane flinched like she'd been slapped. I understand Storm has nightmares every single night, wakes up panicking, checking to make sure her sister's still there. Patricia's hands stayed at her sides. Steady. I understand Shadow won't let anyone touch the top of her head because someone hit her. More than once. From the way she flinches. Jane's face went white. That wasn't me. The words came fast. Defensive. Tommy had a temper. I never. And you left them with him. Silence. The evening air had turned cool. September sliding toward October. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower started up. Shadow's ears rotated toward the sound, then back to Jane. Jane's jaw tightened. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, harder now. The vulnerability replaced by something that looked like anger but smelled like shame. I want them back. Patricia didn't move. I have a new apartment now. Pet-friendly. I've been looking for them for 2 months. Jane's chin lifted. Someone on the Waterbury Community Facebook page mentioned seeing a woman with 2 German shepherds wearing red leather collars, matching ones. Said she'd been asking about dog-friendly walking trails. Patricia remembered the post. She hadn't included photos, just asked for recommendations. But she'd been walking Shadow and Storm through town for weeks now. Someone must have noticed. They're not yours anymore, Mrs. Cooper. Legally. They are. Jane's voice hardened further. Still registered to me. The microchip records show my name. I never signed them over to anyone. You have no papers, no proof of ownership. You abandoned them. I made a mistake. Jane's voice cracked slightly, then steadied. I'm trying to fix it. By taking them from the only person who hasn't left them. By taking them home. Jane stepped forward again. Shadow barked sharp. Warning. Jane froze. They're my dogs. I raised them from puppies. I have every legal right. Rights. Patricia came down 1 step. Shadow moved with her, staying between them. Let me tell you something about rights. Mrs. Cooper, I spent 35 years teaching children. Saw plenty of parents who thought their rights mattered more than what was actually good for their kids. Saw what happened to those children when the adults in their lives put themselves first. This isn't the same. You're right. It's not. Because those children couldn't choose who they wanted to be with. But these dogs can... Jane's eyes went to Shadow. The dog stood rigid at Patricia's side. Every line of her body angled toward Jane. Not attacking. Not backing down. Just there. A wall of muscle and fur and quiet. Unwavering refusal. Shadow. Jane's voice softened, pleading. Shadow. Come here, girl. Come on. It's me. Shadow didn't move. Shadow. Come. Nothing. Not a twitch. Not a flicker of recognition in those amber eyes that had once looked at Jane with complete trust. Jane took another step forward. Shadow's lip curled back just slightly, a flash of white teeth. The woman who had once slept with this dog on her bed every night, who had posted photos of Shadow wearing a bow tie at her wedding, who had called her my baby in Instagram captions, that woman stopped cold. She never did that. Jane's voice had gone small, hollow. Never, not with me. She used to. I could do anything. Brush her, bathe her, trim her nails. She never even growled. That was before you left her. Jane stared at the dog. Her throat moved. Her eyes were wet now. I didn't mean to. What you meant doesn't matter much, does it? Not to them. What matters is what you did. You left them with a man who hurt them. Then you walked away and didn't look back for 8 months. 8 months. Mrs. Cooper. They spent the winter outside somewhere. You know how cold it gets here in January. Jane didn't answer. Storm has a scar on her back leg. Frostbite. The vet said. She almost lost 2 toes. Patricia kept her voice steady. No anger. Just facts. Shadow's got arthritis in her hips now. She's only 4 years old. 4. And she moves like a dog twice her age because she spent months sleeping on frozen ground trying to keep her sister warm. Jane's hand came up to cover her mouth. I didn't know. The words came out muffled. Wet. I swear I didn't know. Because you didn't want to know. Easier that way, wasn't it? Just put it out of your mind. Tell yourself Tommy would handle it. Move on with your life. From inside the house, Storm's whimpering had grown louder. The sound of an animal remembering something it had tried very hard to forget. Jane heard it too. Her face crumpled. I want to make it right. Some things can't be made right. Mrs. Cooper. They can only be lived with. Silence stretched between them. The lawnmower down the street had stopped. A car passed on the road, headlights sweeping across the darkening yard. Jane wiped her face with the back of her hand. Mascara smeared across her cheek. When she looked up again, her expression had changed. Harder. The vulnerability locked away somewhere Patricia couldn't reach. I'll call the police. Her voice was steady now. Cold. They're legally my property. I have registration papers, microchip records, and you're just some woman who found them wandering around. Then call them. Patricia walked back up the steps, sat down in her plastic chair. Shadow lay down beside her, head on her paws, eyes still fixed on Jane. I'll be right here. Jane stood in the driveway, her car still running behind her. Patricia could hear the engine idling, see the headlights cutting across the darkening yard. You don't understand. Jane's voice cracked again. After everything I've been through, the divorce, losing the house, starting over, I need them. I need something that's still mine. They're not things. Mrs. Cooper. They're not furniture you get to take back when your life settles down. They're living creatures who've spent the last 8 months learning how to survive without you. I made a mistake. Yes. You did. Patricia leaned back in her chair. And they paid for it. Jane stood there another long moment. The headlights behind her made her shadow stretch all the way to the porch steps. Then she turned, got in her car, backed out fast enough to spray gravel. Patricia watched the taillights disappear down Maple Lane. Shadow pressed against her leg. Warm. Solid. Storm crept out from behind the sofa and appeared in the doorway, belly low to the ground. It's okay, Patricia said. She's gone. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't over. Jane Cooper had legal papers, microchip registration, everything the law cared about. And Patricia had nothing but 3 weeks of feeding 2 broken dogs and a Social Security check that barely covered her rent. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have anticipated, was that the real threat wouldn't come from Jane Cooper at all. It would come from someone much closer. 2 days later, the vehicles arrived. Patricia was washing the breakfast dishes when she heard them. The crunch of tires on gravel. More than one car. She dried her hands on the kitchen towel, walked to the front window. A white van with animal control painted on the side in green letters. Behind it, a police cruiser. Blue and white. The light bar on top catching the morning sun. Shadow stood at the front door, hackles raised. Storm had already retreated to her spot behind the sofa. Patricia's mouth went dry. She stepped onto the front porch. A police officer climbed out of the cruiser. Middle-aged. Heavy around the middle. He walked with a slight hitch, the way Harold used to walk when his sciatica was acting up.
Mrs. Morrison.
He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. I'm Officer Daniels. We received a formal complaint from a Jane Cooper 2 days ago. She claims you're in possession of her dogs without authorization. They were her dogs. She abandoned them 8 months ago. Ma'am, that's a civil matter for the courts to decide. What I know is she's got registration papers and microchip records. He pulled a folded document from his shirt pocket. She filed a complaint with the town clerk's office. Judge Hartley issued a temporary order this morning allowing animal control to take custody of the animals pending a hearing. A woman emerged from the white van. Short dark hair, broad shoulders. She carried metal leashes looped over one arm and a clipboard in her hand. I'm Officer Brooks. Animal Control. She didn't smile. We're here to retrieve the dogs and transport them to the county shelter until the ownership dispute is resolved. You can't take them. Ma'am, we have a court order. Brooks held up the clipboard. We can and we will. If you obstruct us, Officer Daniels can charge you with... Another car pulled up. Silver Subaru. The air left Patricia's lungs. Karen got out. Walking fast. Almost running. Her blouse was untucked on one side, her hair not quite brushed. She must have left Burlington before dawn. Mom? She pushed past Officer Daniels. I got a call from the Waterbury Police Department. What is happening? The dog's previous owner wants them back. So, give them back. No. Mom, this is... Karen stopped. Turned to Officer Daniels. Patricia watched her daughter's posture change. Shoulders back, chin up. The hospital administrator emerging. Officer, can I speak with you for a moment? Privately. They stepped aside, moved toward the police cruiser. Patricia couldn't hear the words, just the murmur of voices. Karen's hands gesturing toward the house, toward her. Then 3 words. Clear enough to carry across the yard. Concerned about her mental capacity. Patricia's face went hot, then cold. Karen kept talking. Officer Daniels nodded. Glanced at Patricia with a different expression now. The way people looked at confused elderly patients in waiting rooms. The way they looked at people who couldn't be trusted with their own decisions. Patricia's hands hung at her sides. She didn't know what to do with them, didn't know where to look. Her own daughter. Karen walked back toward the porch, that careful expression on her face. That gentle voice, the one Patricia had heard her use with dementia patients during hospital visits. Mom, I'm trying to help you. You just told them I've lost my mind. I told them I'm worried about you, that you've been making some questionable choices lately. Selling the house against everyone's advice, refusing the apartment I found. Now this... questionable. The word tasted like something rotten. That's what you think of me, that I've gone senile? I think you're not yourself lately. Karen's voice stayed calm, patient, the voice of someone managing a difficult situation. I think Dad dying changed something. And I'm scared, and I don't know how to help you anymore. So you tell the police I'm crazy. I told them the truth. Mom, you gave up a perfectly good apartment to live in this. Karen gestured at the small house with its peeling paint and sagging porch. This shack. You're fighting with law enforcement over 2 stray dogs. You hung up on me. You forged. I didn't forge anything. You forged my name on that apartment lease. Karen's face flushed. That's not, I was trying to. You signed my name to a legal document without my permission. That's a crime. Karen. But I'm the one who's lost her mind. Officer Brooks stepped onto the porch. Ma'am, I need to ask you to step aside. We have a court order to take these animals into custody. I'm not moving. Mom? Karen moved closer. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, like she was talking to a child who'd misbehaved in public. Let them take the dogs. It's 2 dogs. It's not worth going to jail over. It's not worth embarrassing yourself like this. Embarrassing yourself. Patricia looked at her daughter. 45 years old. The baby she'd held in the delivery room at 3 a.m. The toddler who'd taken her first steps in the living room of the house they'd just sold. The teenager who'd screamed, "I hate you," and slammed doors and then crawled into Patricia's bed during thunderstorms. Her daughter, looking at her like she was a problem to be solved, an embarrassment to be managed. You don't understand. I'm trying to. No, you're not. Patricia's legs felt weak. She sat down on the porch step, hard. Her tailbone hit the wood. Pain shot up her spine. It's not about the dogs, Karen. It's about everyone deciding they know what's best for me. The apartment I should live in. The furniture I should sell. The signature you put on a contract I never saw. That's not. My whole life, packed into boxes by someone else, labeled by someone else, decided by someone else. Her voice cracked. She hated that it cracked. And now you're standing in my yard telling police officers that your mother has lost her faculties, like I'm not even here, like I can't hear you. Karen's eyes were wet. Mom, Mrs. Morrison. Officer Brooks stepped forward with the leashes. I need you to move away from the door. Shadow stood in the doorway, teeth bared, fur bristling. Storm's whimpering echoed from somewhere inside. Patricia didn't move, couldn't move. Her legs wouldn't work. Her hands shook. 70 years old, kneeling on a porch, being talked about like she wasn't there. Her own daughter telling strangers she might be senile. This was what it came to. 35 years of teaching, raising a child, building a life with Harold. 40 years of marriage. All of it reduced to this moment, an old woman in dirty slacks sitting on wooden steps while people in uniforms decided what to do with her. Please. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Please don't take them. They've already been abandoned once. They finally trust someone. If you take them now. Ma'am, I understand this is difficult. You don't understand anything. Patricia pushed herself up. Her knees screamed. Her back spasmed. She stood anyway. You know what it's like. Spend your whole life taking care of everyone else. Then one day they all decide you're too old to take care of yourself. Husband's dead. Daughter thinks I'm senile. And I've got nothing except these 2 dogs who finally trust me. And you want to take them because some woman who threw them away like garbage 8 months ago filed some papers. Silence. Daniels shifted his weight. Brooks lowered her leashes slightly. Karen's mascara had started to run. Nobody spoke. Then Brooks squared her shoulders. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the court order is clear. Unless Mrs. Cooper agrees to transfer ownership, we have to take them. Patricia's legs gave out. She sat back down on the step, not by choice. Her body just stopped working. Fine. The word came out hollow, empty. Take them. She didn't look up. Couldn't look up. Brooks moved toward the doorway with the leash. Shadow lunged. Not a full attack, just a snap, teeth closing on Brooks's hand for half a second before releasing. A warning. A desperate, terrified warning. Brooks stumbled backward. Aggressive dog. We'll need a muzzle.
She's not
aggressive. Patricia's voice came out raw. Broken. She's scared. She's protecting her sister. Nobody listened. Brooks walked back to her van, opened the rear doors, and from inside the house, Storm began to howl. Brooks walked towards the van to get the muzzle. Jane Cooper stood at the edge of the driveway. Patricia hadn't noticed her arrive. The silver SUV sat behind the police cruiser, engine still running. Jane must have followed the officers here, must have wanted to watch. But she wasn't watching anymore. She was staring at Shadow. The dog stood in the doorway, fur bristling, teeth still bared from the snap at Brooks, every muscle trembling not with aggression. Patricia knew now, but with terror. The same look Shadow got during thunderstorms. The same look she'd had that first day in the bushes behind Patricia's old house. Storm's howling had stopped. She'd gone silent somewhere behind the sofa. That was worse. The silence meant she'd shut down completely. Jane's face had changed. The hardness from 2 days ago was gone. The legal threats, the cold certainty, all of it had drained away. What was left looked like something Patricia recognized. Shame. Stop. Everyone turned. Jane's voice came out rough, unsteady. Don't put the muzzle on her. Brooks paused halfway to the van. Ma'am, the dog just bit me. Protocol requires. I know. Jane took a step forward, then stopped. Her eyes never left Shadow. But she never did that with me. Not once. I could do anything to her. Brush her teeth, clean her ears, give her medicine. She never even growled. Silence. She's scared of me. Jane's voice cracked on the word. My own dog. The dog I raised from 8 weeks old. She's scared of me. Shadow hadn't moved, still rigid in the doorway, still watching Jane with those amber eyes that held no recognition, no trust, only fear. Jane walked toward the porch. Slowly. Her heels sank into the grass with each step. Shadow's growl rose. Jane stopped at the bottom of the steps. Close enough now that Patricia could see the mascara smeared under her eyes, the tremor in her hands. I didn't come here for them. The words came out halting, broken. I came for me, to feel like I wasn't the one who did this. Like I was a good person who made a mistake. Not someone who just... She stopped. Swallowed. Not someone who threw away 2 living things because they were inconvenient. Patricia didn't speak. But look at them. Jane's gesture took in Shadow at the door. The silence where Storm was hiding. They don't want me. They're terrified of me. And they trust you. Her voice broke completely. A stranger. Someone they've known for 3 weeks. They trust you more than they trust me. Because I didn't leave. Patricia said quietly. Yeah. Jane wiped her face with the back of her hand. Yeah. You didn't. She turned to Brooks. I want to transfer ownership. Brooks blinked. Ma'am. Right now. Whatever paperwork you need. I'll sign it. Ma'am. Are you certain? Once you relinquish... I'm certain. Jane looked at Patricia. Her eyes were red, swollen, but steady now. They deserve someone who won't leave them. That's not me, but I think... She stopped, took a breath. I think it's you. Brooks exchanged a glance with Officer Daniels. He shrugged. "I'll radio the clerk's office." Brooks said, "We can do a temporary transfer here. File the permanent paperwork this afternoon." She walked to her van. Daniels followed. Jane stood alone at the bottom of the porch steps. Patricia watched her. This woman who had loved these dogs once, who had posted photos of them wearing bow ties at her wedding, who had called them her babies and then walked away and didn't look back. Not a monster. Just a person who had made a choice she couldn't unmake. "Thank you," Patricia said. Jane nodded. Then she crouched down in the grass. Slowly. Carefully. Shadow's growl faded but didn't stop. "I'm sorry." Jane's whisper was barely audible. "I'm so sorry. Shadow. I should have." She stopped. Shook her head. "I should have been better. For both of you." Shadow didn't move, didn't soften, but she stopped growling. Jane stood, walked back to Brooks' van without looking at the house again, signed the papers on the clipboard, got in her SUV, drove away. She didn't look back. Patricia sat on the porch step, watching until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Shadow came and lay beside her. Storm crept out from behind the sofa and pressed against her sister. Officer Daniels cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'll need you to sign some forms, too." "For the record." Patricia nodded. Her hands had stopped shaking. When the paperwork was done and the vehicles had pulled away, only one car remained in the driveway. Karen's Subaru. Karen stood in the yard, arms wrapped around herself. The morning sun caught the tears on her face. "Mom." Her voice came out small. Nothing like the hospital administrator who had told police officers her mother might be losing her mind. "I'm sorry. I was scared. After Dad. I'm so scared of losing you too. And every time you do something I don't understand, I think, what if something's wrong? What if she's sick and I didn't notice? What if you can't control everything?" Karen's face crumpled. Patricia opened her arms. 3 months later. The roof still leaked when it rained hard. Patricia kept a bucket in the corner of the bedroom, same bucket from her first week here. The furnace still groaned at 2 a.m. The pipe still knocked when she ran hot water. But other things had changed. Harold's rocking chair sat by the front window now. Karen had driven it up from the storage unit in Burlington 6 weeks ago. Didn't say a word when she carried it in. Just set it down and went back to her car for the next load. George had built a bookshelf from rough pine boards, slightly crooked on one side. It held 200 of Patricia's books, the ones she couldn't give away. Jane Austen, Dickens, the entire Little House series she'd read to her third graders every year for 3 decades. 2 stainless steel bowls sat on the front porch, engraved, Shadow, Storm, a gift from Eleanor. Sunday afternoon, late October. The maple in the front yard had turned full gold, leaves drifting down with each gust of wind. Patricia sat in the plastic chair on the porch, book open in her lap. Pride and Prejudice she'd started over from the beginning. Shadow lay at her feet, head resting on Patricia's shoe, eyes half closed. When Patricia reached down to scratch behind her ears, Shadow leaned into the touch, pressed her head against Patricia's palm, tail thumping softly against the porch boards. Storm lay curled against her sister. Each time Patricia turned a page, her tail gave a small wag. A car pulled up. Karen's Subaru. Shadow lifted her head, watched, but didn't growl, didn't tense. Karen climbed out carrying a foil-covered dish. Brought lasagna. Eleanor's recipe. Come sit. Karen settled into the second plastic chair, the one Patricia had bought 2 weeks after moving in. They look good. Mom. They're happy. You look good too. Patricia smiled. I am. Shadow's head turned toward Karen. Her tail moved. Once. Twice. Storm scrambled up and launched herself at Karen before Karen could brace. Paws on her lap. Tongue on her chin. Karen laughed. A real laugh. The kind Patricia hadn't heard in years. She likes me. She likes everyone. Shadow's the picky one. Like someone I know. Patricia looked at her daughter. Karen looked back. That night, Patricia wrote in her journal, "They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Maybe that ain't the point. Maybe the point is finding somewhere safe enough to remember what you already knew." Shadow remembered how to trust. Storm remembered how to feel safe. And me, I remembered that 70 ain't the end of anything. It's just another beginning. She turned off the lamp. Shadow settled beside the bed. Storm curled at her feet. For the first time in 8 years, Patricia Morrison fell asleep without feeling alone. If you're still here, sitting with this story, perhaps something in it felt familiar. There's a quiet weight that comes from being told you're no longer capable, from watching someone you love make decisions about your life without asking, from wondering if the person you've always been is still the person others see. Many of us have carried that weight. Some of us are carrying it still. And perhaps you've known what it means to find something unexpected, a creature. A moment. A small act of choosing for yourself that reminded you that your voice still matters. That your years have given you wisdom, not taken it away. It's all right if this story stirred something you weren't expecting. It's okay if it sits with you for a while, tender at the edges, not quite resolved. Some things don't need to be understood or explained. They just need to be felt. Patricia found her beginning in 2 abandoned dogs on a September afternoon. Maybe yours is waiting somewhere you haven't thought to look. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.